And I will be telling you a little bit more about the agency, but I do want to let you know that today's class is going to be very important because we are going to talk about how to manage credit. And I think if you manage credit well, it will definitely work. It'll work for you, right? So there is financial freedom in knowing how to manage your debt, manage your credit, use it wisely, and that's pretty much what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to give you a couple of really good pointers on how to do that. So again, just to let you know a little bit about our agency, credit.org, we've actually been around since 1974. We've been around for quite some time. If you've not heard of credit.org, I'm not surprised. Our name is Springboard, and we do use credit.org as we do business as credit.org because it is also our website. So if you have not visited our website, definitely do so. We have a lot of really great material and content on there. And what we do is we offer personal financial education. We offer assistance with money, credit, and debt management through educational programs. And we also do financial and confidential counseling as well. And just so you know our accreditations, and as with any agency or any company you're working with, you should know who gives them a stamp of approval. That's very important. So for us, we are accredited by the Council on Accreditation, and they basically make sure that all of our services and our educational material, our counseling sessions, that everything is of the highest quality. We're also members of the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, and that is the largest and oldest nationwide agency that puts us through all of our education and our exams and the whole certification. So when you are speaking with anyone from our agency, whether it be a counselor or a coach or an educator, as myself, we are all certified through the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. We're also certified by the Department of Housing and Urban Development because finances and housing go together. There's a lot of overlap there, and so we do a lot of education, and we do a lot of counseling services relating to home, whether it be rental, whether it be buying a home, whether it be keeping your home. So we have a lot of services related to housing, and then we're also members of the Better Business Bureau as well. So just to tell you about the services that we have credit and debt counseling, financial educational programs. So we do seminars, we do have material as well. Our material is free, you could have access to that. We have debt management plans, homeowner assistance, so like I mentioned, foreclosure prevention, first-time homebuyer classes, reverse mortgage, and for any individuals going through bankruptcy, there is a mandate through the courts where you have to have a counseling session before and after your bankruptcy, and we are actually allowed by the Department of Justice to offer those classes as well. All right, so in order for you to kind of understand what you want to do financially, you have to know where to start, right? And knowing where you are today is definitely going to be the first step to put you in a better position in the future. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and talk about the budget because the budget, of course, is the core. You need to understand what your income is, what your expenses are. If you have any debt, you have to understand, how much money is going towards that. How much are you paying for interest on that as well? That's going to give you a better understanding of what your money is doing, right? So going through your expenses, maybe that doesn't seem like the funnest thing to do, but if you kind of go and, look through everything, comb through everything, you'll be able to find leaks here and there where you're spending a little bit too much on certain categories, right? Balance, you have to look at, at the end of the month. Am I spending too much? Do I have leftover money at the end of the month, or do I have leftover month at the end of the month, right? Because if that is the case, then of course, you have to cut back on a couple of things, or either cut back or increase on increase your income. Okay. So income allocation, that's the thing. You have to analyze your expense categories. So if you tell yourself, I'm only going to budget, X number of dollars for groceries this month, and you continue to go over, you really kind of have to hone in on that category and figure out why it is that you're spending much more than you thought or you wanted to initially, right? If you are paying off debt, make sure that no more than 30 to 35% of your net income is going towards debt. And I've actually come across individuals where they have more than half of their paycheck just going to pay off credit cards, to pay off debt. So just understanding where you are with your finances, understanding if you're going over on certain categories, if you're paying too much for debt, then kind of figuring that out, working your budget, working that back into your budget, and seeing what it is you need to do. Reserves are very important too, and we're talking about savings, investments, and asset protection. And that's important because sometimes we tell ourselves, hey, if I have leftover money at the end of the month, I'll go ahead and put money aside, right? And we kind of have to do it backwards. As soon as you have income coming into the household, you've already worked for that money. You have to pay yourself first, okay? So you have to take money from there, set it aside for savings, and try to manage with the rest of your money for all of your expenses, right? For savings, we always recommend anywhere from 10 to 15% of your income. And of course, savings is very important for a plethora of things because one, it helps you with emergencies. Two, it helps you avoid debt, and I can go on and on and on. So it's very important to have money saved. And only you'll be able to do that. No one's going to put money into your savings account for you, right? Now, if you do have debt, and debt is, it's not only debt. When you try to eliminate your debt, you're doing much more than just paying off um, money you owe. You're actually saving money. And the reason why you're saving money is because now you're not, paying towards interest on that money that you owe. That's very important too. So depending on how much money you owe, the type of interest you have, if it's a credit card with a really high interest rate or a car loan or any debt with a really high rate, that's money that you're losing every single month that you still owe that balance because the bank wants their money because they did you the favor of lending you the money, letting you borrow the money, right? So there are a couple of ways to manage debt. You could do it on your own, and there's other tools and other source or resources that you could use. But a self-managed plan is more of a debt repayment plan where you basically manage how to repay the debt. You could work directly with your creditor, right, and let them know like, hey, I've been making these payments. I don't see my balance go down. Can you please work with me? Right. And then you could also use a credit counseling agency and do a debt management plan directly through them. And I'm going to explain these three options that you may have to be able to pay off the debt a little bit later on. But first, let's talk about credit because sometimes it's very easy for us to apply for a credit card or apply for a loan, and we don't do the math in the long run to see exactly how much that is going to cost us out of pocket, right? So in this example here, we have a debt of $10,000 and we have a total interest of 18%. Okay. So the first month, our first monthly payment is going to be $250. That's going to be our minimum. Okay. So let's say we only want to pay the minimum. It's going to be easy for us. We start paying the balance down. The minimum is going to be a lot smaller. So it's going to be a lot more comfortable for us to pay it off, right? So the first month we pay 250. The next month we get a bill for 247.50. Month after that, 245. So do you see how it starts, coming down? That's great because it's easy for us with our budget, but at the same time, by paying the minimum, we're paying a lot more for interest, right? Because we're not bringing that balance down quickly. So if we were only to stick to the minimum payments for the $10,000, it would take us about 382 months to pay that off, which is quite a long time. So we're looking at paying that off in a long time and also paying back $14,615 of interest. So not only are you paying back the $10,000, you're also paying on top of that $14,000, and that's just free money that the bank gets for allowing you to borrow that money on 18% interest. Okay, so anytime you do borrow, please make sure that you always pay more than the minimum, because again, if you get caught in that cycle where you're only paying the minimum, you're going to end up paying a lot more, when it comes to interest. So in this case, you would have been paying a total back of $24,600, which is, quite a bit of money. Now, if you want to go ahead and fix your payments, you can do that, right? But you wouldn't be able to call your bank and say, "Hey, can you just make sure that it's always 250 every single month? I don't want to pay any less than that." You can go ahead and call them, but they will not be able to set your payments fixed because a credit card is a revolving line of credit. So you make a purchase today, you make a payment tomorrow, so it's constantly moving, right? But there's something called discipline. And if you have discipline, then you can tell yourself, I'm going to pay $250 every single month, regardless of what the minimum payment is. And if you were to do that, then it would take you 62 months to pay this off. And by the way, in the last calculation that I did, the payoff would be 31 years, which is crazy because I'm sure you guys have better things to do in the next 31 years. But yes, you pay the debt off faster, and the interest you'll be paying back is 5,386, which again, it's still pretty high. But if you compare it to the 14,000 or 16,000, whatever it was, it's a lot less. So just looking at this comparison, you would be saving about $9,229 by making sure that you pay more than the minimum. Okay, so that's very important. A couple of resources that I want to give you is bankrate.com. They have a lot of really good calculators. They have a lot of really great financial forums where you could read really good information. And then you can also go onto our website. We do also have calculators and tools and charts. And we just got this really nice like Excel sheet that you could actually download for yourself, and you could, fill it in. So you can get that off of our website as well. So for the debt management, the debt repayment plans, and this is when you are actually strategizing and figuring out how you're going to be able to pay back the debt. Okay, there's 3 different types of strategies, and I'm gonna go over these. So this really just kind of depends on what best fits your current debt situation. Okay, so let's say that you have a lot of little credit cards. So you have a lot of credit cards, and they all have balances, and you want to start paying them off, right? Right now you're paying a little bit towards everything, and it's all there. It's very stressful to have that many cards open or that many number of debts where you have payments that are due, right? And your goal is to start eliminating the cards. Well, what would you do in that case, right? In that case, what you do is you pay the minimum on all the credit cards except for the one with the smallest balance. On that one, you would focus and try to send the most that you can to try to pay that off quickly. Once you're done with that debt and you've completely paid it off, whatever payment you were sending here, then you send it to the next credit card, right? So now you're not only sending the minimum payment, but you're sending whatever you were sending to the smaller card onto that one, and you continue to do that, and you pay the minimum on the other ones until you're done paying that one off. And so that way you start eliminating these debts one by one. Okay, so that's really nice, because doing it this way, it also does help you get motivated once you start seeing that these credit cards are getting paid off, right? The second strategy is trying to improve your credit score. So a lot of the times when you get to see that your credit score is being damaged because you're very close to your limits. Okay, so again, if you have several cards, in this case, you want to do the same type of repayments scenario, but now you'd be making the largest payment to the credit card that's closest to the limit. Okay, so you'd be paying the minimum on the rest of the other credit cards, but that one that's closest to the limit, you're going to send as much as you possibly can to that credit card, because you want to make sure that you bring that balance down as soon as possible. Okay, the third strategy would be, for example, if you are paying your credit cards and you're just not seeing the balances go down because you have very high interest rates on a couple of cards, right? So in this case, again, it's the same type of strategy, but now you're going to be applying the bulk of that payment to the credit card that actually has the highest interest rate, right? And that would be really smart if most of your money is going to the interest. So you try to pay as much as you possibly can to the highest interest, pay the minimum on the other cards, and then once you're done paying that off, then you go to the next highest interest, and then that's the way you start basically attacking the debt, right? So these are the 3 different categories or strategies that you could actually apply to yourself. And here's just a sample of the first strategy that I talked about, which is just canceling out the one with the smallest limit. So we've got 4 different credit cards here, and this one that is highlighted is the one with the smallest balance. So in this case, we're going to send all of our money to that one, but still keep the other ones current until we're done paying that one off, and then we move on to the next one, right? That's the first strategy. The second strategy would be paying down the ones that are closest to the limit. So in this case, if you look at the one that's highlighted, we have a credit card, historic credit card number 2, with a limit of 1,500. The balance is 1,547. So not only are we close to the limit, we've maxed it out and we still owe more, right? At a 19% interest, which is really expensive. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep everything current, making our payments, our minimum payments on time, and then sending the majority of our payment to store card number 2, because we need to bring that balance down to help us with our credit. Okay. And then, like I said, the third the third strategy would be attacking the card with the highest interest rate. And as we could see, store card number one has the highest interest, so we would be sending the majority of our payments there. Okay, so hopefully this, it's easy for you to kind of grasp it and apply it to yourself, depending on what your debt situation could be, right? So like I mentioned, there's also creditor programs where you can call the creditor and let them know, like, hey, I've been a great client, I've never been late, but this interest rate is really high, or I just had a financial hardship because I lost my job or something happened, right? And try to work with your creditors. A lot of the times they're willing to work with you just because they don't want to see you go through bankruptcy or just default on the loan. So write a letter if you can, make a phone call, and see if maybe they could work something out with you. Maybe another option could be credit counseling. So credit counseling, you would work directly with a credit counseling agency such as ourselves. There's many other nonprofit agencies that do the same type of work. But basically what you would do is then you would go ahead and speak with a certified credit counselor, and they would go over your budget, which is really nice because sometimes, not to say that we lie to ourselves, but I think we're not too honest about our numbers with ourselves. Like, we don't think we spend as much as we do. So having someone else kind of go over, the budget with us definitely does help, and it is an eye opener, because we do get to see some expenses that maybe are not all that necessary that we could do without, right? So we when we talk to a counselor, they could go over our budget with us and go through our expenses and see maybe what we don't need. They will also provide an action plan, and they'll give you resources. If they see that you can manage the debt on your own, right, with your finances and the way you actually have your expenses and your debt, they will go ahead and maybe offer or recommend a debt management plan. And basically what a debt management plan is, it's a voluntary plan where you actually propose a workout option to the lenders or to the creditors, and then the housing or the credit counseling agency will take the payment from you and then disperse the payment to your creditors, and that's how they get paid off. And this is something that you would do monthly until you're out of the plan. The plan usually runs anywhere from 3 to 5 years until you're completely out of debt. So that's pretty much how that works. And again, you'd be getting the assistance and the help through a credit counseling agency. Will a debt management plan affect your credit history? It definitely will. It will. It will, because you are basically looking for assistance to try to pay these things off, and you are trying to make arrangements with the creditors to be able to do that, right? But once you start paying those balances down, okay, you will start seeing that your credit score starts going up. Okay, why? Because you're eliminating debt. That's what you're doing. So even if you're thinking, you know what, no, I'm not going to do any of this. I don't want to do any of the strategies. I don't want to work with a credit counselor. I don't want to call the bank. I'm just going to go bankrupt. Okay. Trust me, don't go to bankruptcy. Like, that should be the last option. Try all of these other things first. You really want to see if you could do it on your own, if you need maybe help from the creditor and see if they could work with you, or from a credit counseling agency. Try those options first and see if you can get help that way. And literally just leave bankruptcy to be like the last option, because the bankruptcy would be it would stay on your report for anywhere from 7 to 10 years. So again, if the debt is to be, if the goal is to be debt free, then look at all these other options that you have and focus on those. Now credit is very important. And the reason why is because, like I mentioned, the budget is the core of everything. So you have to know what you're doing with your money, or what your money is doing, right? That's one thing. If for whatever reason you're not able to save, you get yourself into debt, that trickles onto your credit report. If you don't look at your credit report and there's some mistakes on there, and you need to, borrow because now you're purchasing a car or a home, whatever the case is, then that is going to literally have like a domino effect, right? All right, so let me talk about your credit history and why it is so important. It's literally your financial DNA. So anything that you do with your credit will be on your credit report, okay? And the credit reports will determine if you have, if you're able to have access to housing, right? Whether it be renting or purchasing, to get a credit card, purchase a car, maybe a home, right? Even for utilities, sometimes they'll go ahead and run your credit if you're trying to get a cell phone or cable or internet, right? So this is why it's very important that you take care of your credit, because it will definitely take care of you. Also, if you're looking for employment, and if it has anything to do with security, or if it has anything to do with finances, right? So if you're looking to work, maybe to work in gaming, anything with like casinos where you're handling money, or military law enforcement, a security guard, anything of that sort, they will check your credit report. And the reason why they will do that is because they want to make sure that they can trust someone who is not going to be either under financial stress or that could be financially bribed, right? So your credit report says a lot more about you than you really think. Um, and again, if especially if you're in the military, also sometimes they go ahead and they monitor your credit periodically, just because they have to make sure that you can maintain your security clearance. So again, even for employment, it's very important. So if you haven't seen a credit report in a long time, they kind of look like this, right? And the credit report does contain a lot of really good information. It gives you basically all the details of every account you've had, and any actions or notes that go along with those items, right? The information you're going to find is your identifying information. You're going to find any public records that you may have, credit information, any inquiries. It'll explain what your rights are as a consumer, and then how to dispute any type of inaccuracies. So let me go through the breakdown so you could kind of know a little bit more about these categories. So the first one is identifying information, and this is basically going to be your identifying information, your name, your current and previous addresses, telephone number, social security, date of birth, all the important stuff, right? And your current and previous employer. Well, why is this information important? It's important because it basically says who you are. It lets us know who you are. I had a client that actually wanted me to help her daughter start her credit, and her daughter did not have any credit. And I said, let's just go ahead and pull it. She's like, oh, she's 18, she doesn't have anything. And I said, well, yeah, just to make sure that we're starting with a clean slate, right? So we went ahead and we pulled her credit report, and in that credit report, it let us know that she had a credit card since she was 8 years old. And it also let us know that she was currently working in a factory in Texas. Okay. Of course, we knew that that wasn't true. So that just us pulling the credit report told us those two things, that someone had done identity theft because they were using basically her social to be able to be employed elsewhere. And then two, it let us know that there was credit card fraud because she somehow had a credit card since she was 8 years old, and someone else was using it, obviously. So it was called fraud, right? So we had to manage that first before we could do anything else, and secure all of her personal information. So it's very important that you check your credit, that you make sure that all of your identifying information is correct. That's going to be very important. If you see an address there that maybe belonged to a family member or your mom's house and you don't live there anymore, get it removed. Because I'm going to say it, the type of fraud that we see 90% of the time, it's family members or friends. And so they know where you live, they have your information, and if they ever need anything, they'll use your credit. So you have to just be very careful and mindful of that. Your personal information doesn't weigh into your credit score, so you don't have to worry about that. But public records do, right? So public records, you'll have anything if you go into bankruptcy, it'll be on your report. If you have any tax liens, any monetary or civil judgments, foreclosures, or even if you have any type of child support that's overdue, okay, you'll see that on the report. If you have had an account that you didn't pay for and it fell into collections, you're going to see it there too, right? So anything that's paid or unpaid, just to let you know, cannot report more than 7 years on the credit report. And so, for example, let's say if I had, a medical emergency and I had $15,000 that I had to pay for and I didn't have $15,000, right? Let's say my payment was due today. If I was not able to make my payment today, let's say it was $400, because I just didn't have the money. Okay, then today I didn't make my payment, so today would be the first day of my delinquency. If I was not able to pay all year, I just couldn't get the finances straight. Year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, 7 comes around. After 7 years, whether I paid the debt or not, the information falls off of the credit report. Okay. Now, this is not to say, hey, don't pay your credit card debt or your collections for 7 years and it'll fall off. That's not how it works because, depending on what state. So, for example, in the state of California, the first 4 years, they could actually legally sue you, right? So always try to make sure that you try to make arrangements to pay. But again, after 7 years, the information does fall off of the credit report. The balance, if it's something in collections, it won't update until you're completely done paying that off, and it needs to report the date correctly. So like I said, with that 7-year mark, if, for example, let's say one collection agency transfers your debt to another collection agency on year 5, the other collection agency, it still has 2 more years to be able to collect on it, right? But they want more time. So they changed the date, and now it looks like you have another 5 more years to have that debt fall off the report. Okay. This is why you have to be on top of collections, because we have seen collection agencies do something they're not supposed to do, which is change the dates to make the debts look newer, right? Where they still have time to collect on it. So they cannot do that. So just make sure that you're on top of those dates. They cannot duplicate or report the collection of the same debt if sold, to another buyer. And we've seen that before too. A lot of the times they are mistakes, but again, just make sure that you look at your credit. So if you have a $200 collection account here, and now you have another 200 collection account here, and it's the same thing, then one of them has to fall off. Okay, there can't be any duplicates on there. Now, one of the things that I did want to mention in regards to the 7 years, let's say that, going back to the medical debt for the $15,000, right? Let's say that was a debt I had 6 years ago, right? So 6 years ago to year 7, that means a collection agency has 1 more year to collect on it, right? Now, let's say they call my family, they call my employer, and they're trying to look for me so I could pay the money, and I'm getting stressed out, and I finally pick up the phone, and they're trying to make an arrangement with me. But they do let me know that I need to make my $400 payment, right? Because now they're definitely desperate for me to make payment because they only have 1 year to collect. Okay. So if I still do not have the $400 to make, they make an arrangement with me and they said, look, just, so we could make, some type start some type of payment here. Can you go ahead and just send us $50? Can you do $50? I can do $50, right? So if I can do $50 and they can stop calling my family, my friends, and my employer, I will pay the $50 gladly just to get them out of my hair. But just to let you know, those $50 are going to restart the 7-year clock. Okay, so I'm not saying do not pay your debt, but I'm saying if you financially cannot support a repayment plan of that debt, really just focus on what your priorities are. Okay, so I just wanted to give you that information because it is necessary. Okay. The credit information. So on the credit report, another thing you're going to find is the body of the report, which is going to have all of your credit items, right? And so, for example, it'll let you know when the account was opened, if there was the credit limit, what the credit limit is, the balance, if there's a balance, the monthly payments, and then each account will also have a tally next to it, which will let you know whether or not you've made your payments on time. Right. So it'll give you a tally for the last 12 to 24 months. And that way you could visually just be able to pick up that information and say, oh, okay, I've been current, in the last 2 years. That's great. Okay. All of the negative information, by the way, if you did have a negative payment at some point, that goes along with the 7-year statute of limitations. So after the 7 years, that information falls off. All the good information, all the good payments that you've made, all of that information stays on your credit report forever. Okay. And it also lets you know when the accounts are open, if they were closed, if they were charged off, and if they were in bankruptcy. It'll give you all of that information as well. Now, the petitions for credit, you'll see those on the report too. If you ever apply for credit anywhere, you'll see them, the pulls of the credit on your report. It'll let you know what entity was trying to, pull that information. And there's two types of credit pulls, let's say. There's something that's called a hard pull, and then there's something that's called a soft pull. And the difference between the two is that the hard pulls actually do, bring your points, your credit score down a bit, where the soft petitions, the soft inquiries, or the soft credit pulls, you'll hear that term used interchangeably. But any of those things, those are the soft pulls, and they do not hurt your credit. Okay. So for example, if you're looking to get a car, if you're looking to buy a home, or if you're applying for a credit card, okay, if you make the attempt of applying, that is going to be enough to bring your credit score down, whether they give you the credit or not. Okay. Just the simple fact that you tried. It'll bring your points down maybe by 5 points or less. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but at the same time, when you're working with a lender, a lot of the times they do look at you at by credit tiers, and so those 5 points could be something that could bring you down to another tier where now, if you do get a loan, you'll get a much higher interest rate. So if you do not have to get, like store credit cards, for example, if you go to a store and they say, hey, did you want to go apply for, a credit card today? We'll give you 15% off of your entire purchase. And you're like, why not? If you're just doing it for the deal, just understand, one, you may or may not get it. And two, it will hurt your score, right? Another thing you don't want to do is open and close accounts. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. Okay, so that is considered a hard pull. Now, one of the really nice things that we have as consumers, as a right for consumers, is that we are allowed to do comparison shopping to see who is going to give us the best rate. Okay, so if you've ever purchased a car and you feel like you're pressured and they're giving you these numbers and you're like, okay, fine, I'll buy the car. Understand that you could go to a car dealership, they could run your credit, they could give you an offer, and you could walk away and go to another place, or you could go to a bank and see if they give you a car loan, and then you can compare to see who's going to give you the best rate. You have a 2-week window to do that, where it's only going to cause the deduction of one hard pull of your credit, not every single time. So that's really nice, right? Another thing too is for homes, you could actually shop for a mortgage loan, and you have a 30-day window. So it's a whole month, right? For vehicles, it's a 2-week window. So that's good to know for consumers. So like I mentioned, the soft inquiries for credit, or the soft pulls, that's, for example, when you look at your credit report, and a lot of the times I'll ask people like, hey, have you looked at your credit report? And the first thing they say is like, oh no, I don't want to pull my credit because I don't want my credit score to drop, right? But it doesn't happen. You actually have the right to know what's being reported of you. Okay, so if you pull your credit report, it's not going to hurt your score. If you have maybe your employer check your credit, that's not going to hurt. Bring it down. If you're looking for housing, right? And your landlord is asking to pull a copy of your report, they're only doing to monitor, right? To do like risk management and see how much of a down payment or a security deposit they would need, right? If you have promotions coming to your house where it says, hey, you've been pre-approved for a credit card for $10,000, they've already looked at your credit. It was a soft pull, right? Now, if you were to fill out the application and send it back, then that would be a hard pull, because now you're applying for credit, right? So if you don't respond to those applications, you don't have to worry about it. If you have any type of monitoring services, like either through your lender where they tell you like, hey, this is what your credit score looks like today, they're constantly looking at your credit, but it's only for monitoring purposes, right? Also, if you pull your credit report and you get to see that there's a lot of collection agencies on the report, and you're like, why are collection agencies looking at my credit? They do something called skip tracing. So when they're looking for people that owe the debt, and they can't find them, they start doing something where they start matching data. And this is how they start looking for people. So, if you just happen to, match data that they had, they'll check the report just to see if you're the person who owes a debt. But, don't be scared if you do see collection agencies on your report. It just basically means they're looking for an individual that maybe matches some of your information, maybe your name or things like that. All right, so the credit score, we know the credit score is important. FICO is basically the most trusted the FICO calculation that the lenders use. And we don't know exactly how it's calculated, because what they do is they have a patented mathematical algorithm that they use that they don't share with anyone. But what we do know is that they do break things down into 5 different categories. They take the information from the report, and then they just come up with this, this math calculation where they actually give you a score. The lowest you can score is 300. The max you can score is 850. And if you look at the categories, the biggest category here would be payments, your payment history. So 35% of your score determines what your, is determined by your payment history. So you want to make sure that all of your payments are made on time. Will one payment, late be a big deal? It actually can be, right? Because again, it's one of the biggest categories. So you really want to avoid sending in your payments late. You can't just say like, oh, that's okay, I'll just go ahead and foot the late bill or the late payment. No, because it actually gets reported to the credit bureaus if you're delinquent more than 30 days on from your due date, right? So you have to make sure that you make your payments on time. Also for amounts owed. So, depending on how much credit you have available, you don't want to use more than 30% of what you have. So if you have a $1,000 credit card, you don't want to use more than $300. And the reason is because, again, once you start owing a little bit more and you're in the 40 and the 50%, or you max out your card, that 30% for that category for amounts owed is actually going to work negatively against you. So you don't want that to happen. So you want to make sure that if you do have lines of credit, that you use no more than 30% of that. And if you can work and get yourself into the habit of using your card and paying it off at the end of the month, that would be ideal, because that would help you with the two categories, because you'd be making your payments on time and you would be keeping your debts low, right? So both those categories are 65% of your score. So that would be a really good thing for you, right? Length of credit history, that's another thing too. So make sure that you keep your seasoned accounts, your older accounts, you want to keep those around. Why? Because those have the most history. If you do have younger accounts, something that you opened in the last year, 2 years, 3 years max, you can go ahead and close those out if you would like to, not that you have to, okay? Or you could just manage to keep those, in your file if you want to. But if you are thinking, you know what, I just have too many credit cards, I just want to close them out, close out the youngest ones, okay? You need the other ones with the longer history. That's 15% of your credit score. Now, let's say that you just don't want to use your credit cards, but you don't want to close them either, right? Well, if you don't use your credit cards, the bank is going to close you out. And they're going to say, well, if you're not using the money, we're going to let somebody else borrow the money, okay? So what happens then? Well, they don't have a minimum that you can use for the cards, and I don't know if I'm being clear. So basically, you don't have to spend $500 for them to keep your account active. You could make a very, very small purchase, $5-10 if you want, and then pay it off at the end of the month. That alone will be enough activity for them to continue to keep that account open so they don't close your account out, which is really nice, because then that will extend the history on your card. So then that helps you for those three categories, right? You're using it and you're paying it off. You're not keeping a balance, and you made your payment on time. You're not keeping a balance, and you're extending the life of your credit card, and that's 15%. So those are three really good tips, right? 10% would be new credit. So again, the points that drop every time you apply for debt would be that 10%. And then the other 10% would be types of credit in use. So you just want to have a nice balance of everything. If you have a student loan, if you have a credit card, if you have a car loan, just have a nice balance of everything. Not all car loans or all store credit cards. Just having a nice balance of everything, lets us know how you manage different types of debt. All right, so a couple of things that come in hand that are handy when you pull your credit report and you see that there's something that's wrong, and now you have to dispute it. It's an easy process, so you don't have to be too scared about it. Actually, you could either mail in a letter, and we do have sample letters on our website that you could use to do that. Or you can go directly onto the credit bureau's website, and it's a very easy process because they've heard it all. They know about all of the mistakes or any fraud or identity theft, and you basically just click on a couple of options, and it's a very quick process, right? But in this case, let me just go over the sample letter here. Item 1, it says, I dispute ABC National Bank account 12345. I have never been late on this account. So let's say that it shows that there is a late payment, but you've never been late. Well, then they need to investigate that. Okay, so this letter would help you then open that dispute so they could go ahead and investigate that and make a correction if necessary. Okay, it says item 2, I dispute ABC Financial Services account 4545. This account was not a charge off. Please delete. Okay, so if you made another arrangement, or if you closed the account and it wasn't charged off, whatever the case is, if there is any correction to be made, making these letters and submitting them to the credit bureaus and opening up a dispute for them to analyze everything and make the corrections is the best thing for you, because now you're being proactive, right? And you're making sure that all of the information on your credit report is correct. Another letter that is very important and comes in very handy is a validation letter. And a validation letter is basically just you sending this letter to the collection agencies, and you just want to validate a debt. Let's say there's a collection on your report that you don't remember, or you don't know if it's yours, really. And so what you can do is you can send this letter to the collection agency, and basically what the letter says is, hey, collection agency, I don't know if this is my debt. I'm not saying it is, but I'm not saying it's not. Okay. I just want you to give me all of the information about this debt. And then that'll let me know why you put it on my account, right? So if you look at the it would be your right hand half of the screen, it has a lot of bullet points. So basically what you're asking the collection agency is for them to give you all of that information, okay? And they have 30 days to do that. That's what this letter lets them know, right? Now, if they do not deliver that information within 30 days, you're also letting them know that if they don't provide this information to you, you will then go ahead and file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission because of defamation of character, because they're making you look bad, but they can't prove how this debt is even yours. They don't have all of the information. Okay, so this is another really, really great letter that could help you. Again, if they don't have the information or the debt isn't yours and you tried reaching out to them and they just couldn't deliver within the 30 days, you can go ahead and file a complaint. And in this case, then that item would have to be removed because they can't prove that it's yours. But the first thing you need to do is you need to look at your credit report, okay? And so in order for you to review your credit reports, we recommend that you do it at least once a year, once every 12 months. You can do it through annualcreditreport.com, which is going directly through the website, or you can give them a call at the number that's on your screen. Okay. And then you'll be able to get that information. The credit report you get for free. You don't get your score for free. You would have to pay for a report with a score, which is, I'm going to say, I think it's about anywhere from $12 to $18, which is not too much. But in reality, you don't need to get the score. You just need to make sure that all the information on the credit report is correct. Okay, so so you can go ahead and contact them there. Another place where you can get an idea of what your credit score is would be, for example, Credit Karma. They have a lot of really great tools where you can just get like an estimated credit score, and you kind of know, what your score looks like, and that service is free. Jeanette, can we get copies of the sample letters? Actually, we have those sample letters on our website, and I'll let you know what book it is. And but you can go onto our website. We have a bunch of books right there, and one of them would be Understanding Your Credit Reports and Scores. Your credit reports and scores, and you'll be able to just either download the document, the PDF for yourself, keep it for free, and then you could just copy paste that to a Word document because it is pretty wordy, so you don't have to retype anything. But yeah, and yes, a copy of the presentation. If you guys want to go ahead and maybe email Juan directly, or maybe Juan, if you could maybe help us with that, I would be glad to share this presentation with you if you'd like. So if you could just email Juan. He could go ahead and send it out to you. So yeah, so my website again is credit.org, which is the name of our
just for everybody, we will be sending this presentation out after the fact, so no need to email me personally. You should all be receiving this presentation and any additional information. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Juan. All right. Yeah, we were ready to overload his mailbox. Sorry about that. All right. So a couple of more tips for you to take care and take charge of your financial future. Yes, I did just save him 100 emails, didn't I? Or he just saved himself. Okay, so yeah, take control of your money. That's going to be the first thing, understanding what your money is doing. And of course, the only way you're going to be able to do that is by tracking your money, and just and knowing where you're spending it. Sometimes we know exactly to the penny how much we're going to get, coming in, but do we know to the penny how much is going out? We really don't. So you do have financial responsibilities for your well-being, right? So make sure that you understand how to prioritize those responsibilities. Know your cash flow, right? And do whatever you can to be able to reduce certain expenses so that you do actually not only meet all of your financial obligations month after month, but also have money left over at the end of the month. Create an emergency fund. That's going to be very important because we had a pandemic. Anything could happen now, right? And we have to be prepared for it. So any little money that we could set aside for an emergency will definitely come in handy, right? Establish and maintain good credit. And we kind of talked about that. I gave you a couple of pointers on how to do that. And set clear financial goals. What do you want to do? Do you want to get yourself out of debt? Right? Do you want to purchase a home? Do you want to get a car? Whatever that goal is, write it down and make sure that you take the right steps to be able to get to that, and I mentioned a couple of steps that you can take if you want to pay off debt, and the resources that you can use as well. Become a more knowledgeable investor. And when we're talking about investing, we're not talking about going into the stock market and we're just talking about this dollar. How can I stretch this dollar? That is a smart investment, right? So no matter what level of expertise you have, you could still learn a lot about money and where you could invest it or where you could make your dollar grow or how you could stretch your money, right? So get some basic information, and what you guys are doing here today, coming to this class is very good, because I mean, this is definitely the first step, getting financially educated. We don't get this information in school, right? It's not regular curriculum in school. We're definitely not born with it, and unfortunately a lot of the times we do learn by making mistakes, and that is a financial setback, right? So you guys are definitely doing the right thing today. Let's see here. Whoops. Don't postpone it, getting started, and ask questions to get information, right? Advocate for yourself in the workplace. So even if you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I would need to have more income right now, but it's very hard for me to look for a second job, or I just wouldn't be able to do that. Advocate for yourself at the job where you are. Negotiate your salary if you can. um, you know um, if you are maybe looking to transition into another job and maybe they're paying a little bit less, well, look at the salary, not the salary, look at the benefits, the medical benefits. If they have maybe a match with your 401k, little things like that, it's still money. But it's not coming out of your pocket, it's a part of the benefits. So weigh your options. Do any research if you need to. Speak up on any accomplishments. So where you are working right now, if you're supposed to do one thing, right, and they ask you to do a million other things, hey, pat yourself on the back and let them know what you did, right? Why? Because if there is a possibility for you either to move up or get a raise or negotiate your salary, you can do that. Why? Because you've done the work. Okay. So there's nothing wrong with you, making sure that you advocate for yourself and ask for flexibility if needed. Oh my gosh, if you could change your schedule because of daycare, right? And it's going to save you money, because now you don't have to pay a babysitter because you're going to have time to be able to take care of your kids and whatever the case is. Then try to ask for that flexibility, because in the long run, it's going to make sense dollar wise, right? Plan for retirement. It's never too late. Save as much as you possibly can. Pay yourself first. And I always say that, pay yourself first, because if you are working, you're already sacrificing the free time that you have, to do fun things, to be with your family, to work. And the thing that's very sad is to see the money come right in. Here comes the paycheck, and then it goes right out. And who did you work for, right? That was your work. That was you being away from your family. That was you, not being at home, relaxing. So you've already worked for it. As soon as that money comes in, take at least 10 to 15% of that out, put that into savings, and then the rest can go to pay the bills, and try to manage that, right? Um, Join an employee retirement plan if you haven't invested in retirement. Set saving goals and keep track of the progress. And depending on your age, maybe look at your social security benefits as well, and start planning on that as well. So even though if this is not you right now, or you have to kind of start thinking about everything, because when we're talking about finances, children start learning about money not through family or parents or anything like that, by commercials and things they see on the internet, okay? From month 18, from 18 months of age. So if you're sitting here thinking, what's a good time to start teaching your children about money? It's immediately, because they've got, people in marketing that are very, very smart, and they know exactly what they're doing when they're coming after your children. So from 18 months on to when we leave this earth, we're going to have that really good relationship with money. Another thing you want to do is you want to protect your income and your assets, right? So if we're talking about life insurance, disability insurance, home and auto insurance, the last thing you want to do is let those policies lapse, and all of a sudden, there's a fire in your home, or all of a sudden you got into a car accident. That gets to be very expensive. So even if you're just like, insurance, yes, but at the same time, there is a lot, there's a benefit there as well. So try to protect your assets as well. health insurance, long-term care insurance. And if you do have assets that are paid for already, put them in a trust, right? And for this, of course, you would have to talk to a financial planner that can help you with this, but I just want you to have this in mind because all of this ties in with all stages of life, one, and two, because it's a part of your money, right? You have to take care of it. You have to think ahead of time as well. Now we do have a poll. Juan, if you wanted to go ahead and did you want me to share the poll? Oh, there it is.
I just launched it.
Okay, great. So the question is, when was the last time you requested your credit report from the credit bureaus? And I would love to see your answers. Is it in the last 6 months? Was it in the last 12 months? Or was it over a year ago? Let us know.
All right, I think most are in.
Okay,
Yes.
so I
Do
can't
you
see the answers.
can you see the poll? Okay, so I'll go ahead and share the poll results. I think I can only see them. There was actually a 50-50 split. 50% of participants said in the last 6 months, and 50% said over a year ago. So it's either or, it seems.
Well, that's great. But at the same time, for those of us who have not pulled our credit report in the last 12 months, you want to do that. And I think one of the things right now, fraud is a really big one, where you want to make sure that it reports your activity and what you've been doing. And if you've been taking care of your credit, you don't want to see any other activity but your own on that report. So you want to make sure that you look at your credit and just make sure that all the information on there is correct. But it's very important right now with the pandemic. The CARES Act is allowing us to pull our credit report actually once a week, which is really nice. And that's just because, again, e-commerce fraud, if you're looking for employment, if you're looking for any types of services that need to, for whatever reason, you need to be on top of your credit report, you have access to that. So
Jennifer, I know that there was a program that you just learned about today. Do you think you can share about that very briefly?
yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and let me just pull it up here. I mean, we literally just got this information today. I believe it was something that came out Monday. So there is the California COVID-19 rent relief. And this is a program now that is for individuals in the state of California who are either landlords or renters in the state and need assistance because they've defaulted on their rent, right? So there is a specific website for the state where you could actually apply for the relief benefits. And the website is housingiskey.com. So let me go ahead and type it in. I don't know if you want to do that one. Let's see. Housingiskey.com.
I think it's this one. I typed in housing is key and it brought up housing.ca.gov.
Okay. Oops, sorry. Okay, so yeah, so if that's the link, then that's great. But the reason why we wanted to mention this, and Juan and I were talking about this earlier, is because generally when there's hardship in the economy, we do get to see a lot of bad actors out there that say that they're trying to help, and unfortunately, they just try to take advantage of people that are in need. So just be aware that there is a particular program for the state of California that is there to help renters and also the landlords. And that would be the website where you can get information on the program and how to apply and what the benefits are. Okay, so I don't have that information, but I did want to give you that resource. In case you do need it, then you have access to that through that website. So thank you, Juan, for sharing that with everyone.
Yeah, Jennifer, I think there was also a question that we may have missed during the presentation. It was, how do I know if I'm being sued for an old credit debt?
You will be able to get something. You'll get something in the mail saying that they're basically coming after you legally for the debt. They'll give you also. They'll generally tell you, you have this amount of time to be able to work with us, and at that time you could definitely try to work something out to negotiate the debt. But I would say in regards to the negotiation, you want to make sure that if you negotiate is because you have money to negotiate. You don't want to just kind of open up a can of worms and say you're going to work with them and you don't have money to do that, right? I will say it could be an expensive process to go after someone and sue them, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, because I've seen it happen for small amounts as well. But you'll definitely know because you'll get something in the mail saying that you're being legally um, reviewed, I guess, or they're basically coming after the debt in a legal aspect now. So hopefully that
Right.
answers the question.
I think we're just going to allow another minute for questions. So at this time, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask Jennifer while we've got her on.
And I don't know if we were able to get the translations, but I can take questions in Spanish if anyone's interested.
Oh, great. Yeah, unfortunately, we weren't able to get translation running, but if there are any questions in Spanish, feel free to ask. Si hay preguntas en español, I guess I should say, puede preguntar ahorita, y Jennifer las puede, I don't know how to say answer.
Contestar
Contestar. Thank you.
o responder.
Uh-huh. All right. Just want to make sure nobody's, okay, here we go.
Is there a fee for counseling at credit.org? We do have some of the services that we have are free, and some of the services that we have do have a very small fee. We have all of those fees on our website. So depending on what type of service you're looking for, you'll be able to see the fee schedule there. Thank you, Iris. Can you do it remotely? Yes, right now we're doing everything remotely. Even before the pandemic, a lot of the counseling services are done over the phone. You could definitely do a face-to-face. Our hub is in Riverside. Our headquarters are in Riverside, but right now we're doing everything remotely. So yes, you would be able to call in and be able to get that done. You're welcome. All right, Juan. Well, I don't know if we have any more questions.
It does not seem like it. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you, credit.org, for joining us today. If there are any additional questions, I will be sending out a copy of this report as well as some additional information. If there are any questions that arise, feel free to respond to the email that gets sent out then. Thank you all for joining, and thank you again, Jennifer.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.